This week on Pop of Culture, we talk to NPR's Linda Holmes about her latest novel.
Did you get to exercise any demons by writing about people that you've met or that you've dated?
Possibly. Possibly, yes.
We also have an exclusive behind-the-scenes listen to the Ball State Studio Band. We try our hand at songwriting, and we find out what a lifelong arts teacher is doing in retirement. Coming up.
Pop of Culture on IPR is made possible in part by Psi Iota Xi. Additional support comes from the Indiana Arts Commission, the Community Foundation of Randolph County, the National Endowment for the Arts, and sustaining members of IPR. You can support local programming today at indianapublicradio.org.
From IPR, this is Pop of Culture. I'm Carol DuQuette.
And I'm Michelle Kinsey. Coming up, a podcast producer goes on 20 blind dates just before having the perfect meet cute. We talk to NPR's Linda Holmes about her latest novel.
But first, we head down the street from the Pop of Culture studios to Ball State's Music Instruction Building, where rehearsal is underway.
You're hearing the Ball State University Studio Band, and joining me is Cassius Goens. He is the director of the studio band here at Ball State, and he is also associate lecturer of music, specializing in jazz percussion, right?
Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about the studio jazz band.
Okay, so the studio band, it was started 2017, 2018 by my colleague Christoph Thompson, Dr. Thompson, who is the head of our music media and production program here at Ball State. And it was a much smaller outfit than what we have now. It was more like a combo setting, so 5 to 6 students. And they performed out in Muncie and surrounding areas as well, but only like a few times a semester or a year. It's grown a lot since then. Our program has grown, so to keep up with our program and the demands of the students, so has studio band.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely been a glow up of the studio band because it seems like I'm seeing the names show up all over the place on social media. Performances at the Jazz Kitchen, performances in town at Be Here Now, private events, fundraisers, galas. I mean, it's all over the place. Why is this so important for the students?
It's so important because it's giving them the necessary tools to be professional musicians in the music industry. So it's giving them the tools. They not only know how to play their instruments and do it well, they're learning tons of repertoire. So everything from Stevie Wonder to Bruno Mars to Ariana Grande. We do classic soul, funk, R&B, and myself being a musician that's still actively performing every week, multiple times every week, I understand what it takes to kind of be a professional musician. And you have to wear many hats. I tell my students it's not a straight line, being a musician. So you could get a call to play for a pop group. I got a call to play for a Motown group in a couple weeks. Wow. So you never know what you're going to be playing. So I like to have my students be prepared to take those opportunities when they come along. So it's really giving them the tools to do that, but also the other side of the music business, being a professional and knowing how to book gigs, knowing when to show up, knowing how to run a rehearsal, knowing how to run sound. So we set up every day our PA system and our mics and everything, and all of the students have a hand in that. So they're getting a little bit of everything so that they're well-rounded when they get done.
Yeah, it's it's one thing to be in the classroom or be in kind of a studio session at Ball State. It's another to go out and perform in a variety of different venues. I think that's awesome.
This is a hands-on class, a hands-on ensemble. So
Absolutely, absolutely. I noticed you in rehearsal. You have the biggest grin on your face. Talk to me about how you feel watching these students kind of gel as a band to improve as they go along. And really, I mean, I noticed just in this rehearsal, the stage presence, the audience banter. I mean, they've got that stuff down. How does that make you feel as the director?
I mean, it makes me feel great. You know, it's all about them at the end of the day. So to watch them kind of blossom into their own and to get better as the semester goes along and to watch their camaraderie between each other as well, it's a beautiful thing.
We've got Elijah Neal, and he is one of the vocalists with the studio band. Elijah, we just heard you perform some of the tunes that you're going to be performing out and about in concert. First of all, you sounded amazing.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Tell me how you got involved with the studio jazz band. Why was this something you wanted to be involved with?
So when I originally came to Ball State campus as a vocal performance major, and granted there are a lot of amazing staples in classical music, but that was all I was doing. And as a vocalist who grew up in church singing gospel, R&B, jazz, like that's my base. Like that's what I love to do. And so at first I wasn't really well versed in the ensembles on campus my first year, but second semester I got to see studio band perform at one of like the collective performances, and I was like, I have to get on stage and do it. And so at the beginning of my sophomore year, which is this year, first semester, I came in on audition, they let me in, and it's just been the most amazing experience getting to do the style of music that I've literally been craving to do.
Time out. So you this is your first year with studio band.
This is.
Oh my goodness, you seem like a veteran. You seem like I thought you were going to say, I'm a senior and I've been with the studio
No,
band
I'm just a second year. I'm only 20.
years.
I'm only 20.
Oh my goodness. What is your favorite part about being in studio band?
All in all, just the creative space to create. Like it is so healing to be able to do a style of music built by vets who created it for people like me. So I just like, it is such an amazing experience to get to do that with like-minded people who also just love to jam out professionally, and it's really fun.
Yeah. How important is that as a student to be able to get these experiences, real, like you said, real professional experiences while you're still in class?
Absolutely. So yeah, like with class, like, class is so like stressor. And granted, I am very grateful for the opportunity. I'm also a first-gen student, so I'm very grateful to be here representing my family in my hometown, Gary, Indiana. Go G. But studio band is my de-stressor. It's my time to relax and create and make music and kind of build this and practice this portfolio that I'm going to be putting out by the time I'm an upperclassman and wanting to do internships and crazy other places and stuff. So yeah.
Absolutely. So as you look through, because the band has quite a repertoire, as you look through there, what are some of your favorites on the list?
For me personally, one of my favorite songs to sing is Say Yes by Floetry. It is a very just like sensual, fun song, and I personally don't get to sing in my falsetto much, so I get to kind of unlock this more like feminine, sultry side to when I sing, and I just love that song so much. She's crazy. She like moans in the song, like she goes crazy. But my favorite song, like to hear song, is Pretty Wings. Luke sings that song. He's the other male vocalist in our group, and he just, his voice is like, it's literally It melts. I melt every time he opens his mouth. So yeah, Pretty Wings, when he sings that, I'm just in awe.
Wow. Now, since you just joined Studio Band, do you understand, can you comprehend how huge it is that the band is playing at the Jazz Kitchen?
So I've had my mom is a singer. That's where I get my little singing quirk from.
Yeah.
And her sisters are performers, and they know artists that have gone to jazz band because they're based in Ohio. So they know artists that have performed at jazz band. So when I told them, they were freaking out.
Kitchen, you mean?
Oh yes,
yeah.
Jazz.
That's right.
Thank you, Jazz Kitchen. And they were just completely geeked for me. I tell my parents not to travel out 3 hours from where to go, but they were we are on it. We bought tickets.
Yes.
I'm so excited. So I've been in a practice room almost every day. I cannot forget a lyric. I cannot miss a beat. This is one of the biggest performances that I'll be doing ever.
Well, I think we're going to see you a lot in the coming months in Studio Band and then beyond. I look forward to see what you do post Studio Band because I'm telling you what, it's amazing.
Thank you guys so much.
Students get involved with the Studio Band? Is it an audition situation?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Studio Band is an audition-based ensemble. We normally hold auditions the first week of the semester in the fall. Mm-hmm. So we've had quite a few students audition. Me and my colleague, Dr. Thompson, we sit through many hours of listening to the different instrumentalists and vocalists come through and audition, and then we kind of narrow it down and we make the group from there. We normally have 5 vocalists, 3 horns, 2 drummers who trade off. One plays drums, one plays percussion, 2 guitarists, bass, and keys.
That's awesome. Do you hear from graduates that are still doing it, and about their experiences they had with Studio Band?
And that's a good point to bring up. We do hear from graduates and alumni, and we have an alumni of the program, Cambria Moncrief. She's coming back to perform with us at the Jazz Kitchen. Nice. She's going to be our guest artist. So she was a student here. She's a graduate of the M&P program, and she was in Studio Band when it first started. She's one of the founding members.
An OG.
So yes, it's going to be great to have her come back and see how it's grown since she's been away and graduated.
That's awesome.
So it's going to be wonderful to have her come back.
Yeah.
It's kind of a full circle.
You can't have a better testimonial than that. Somebody actually moving on and doing that and then some. And how wonderful that she wants to come back and still share her talents. So you mentioned the Jazz Kitchen. Let's let everybody know when that Jazz Kitchen performance is.
So Jazz Kitchen is Tuesday, March 18th at 7 o'clock. That's in Indianapolis. We have Cambria Moncrief that's going to be a guest artist with us. We got about an hour and 45 minutes worth of music prepared. So it's going to be a really, really great night.
In case people are not aware, tell them why the Jazz Kitchen is such a huge thing for this group to be able to perform. This is the place where all of the jazz, R&B greats perform on a regular basis, and you are on the calendar.
Yeah, so the Jazz Kitchen is the premier jazz venue in Indianapolis. Yeah. And I've seen so many world-class Grammy-winning artists grace that stage. So it's really special for us to be able to do the same thing, and especially for the students. A lot of the gigs we've played, it's their first time performing outside of a school environment. Wow. So to go straight to the Jazz Kitchen,
that's 0 to 60 in 2 seconds.
It's a really, really cool thing. And the Jazz Kitchen, everybody, the staff, David Ali, the owner there, they're all great people, very much involved in uplifting the musicians and the community in Indianapolis. So that's a wonderful thing as well.
Well, congratulations on the success of Studio Band. We look forward to seeing you out in the community.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Ball State Studio Band can be heard throughout East Central Indiana. You may know Linda Holmes as NPR's pop culture correspondent. She also hosts NPR's Pop Culture Happy Hour. That's when she isn't writing novels. Her third book, Back After This, is out this week.
We called in IPR's resident reader, Stephanie Weekman, for this preview.
The novel, Back After This, is the story of Cecily, a podcast producer who agrees to host a new series about modern dating. Cecily will go on 21st dates under the guidance of a social media influencer and her newly minted relationship coach. But just before they hit record, sparks fly after she meets Will, a photographer with whom she helps rescue a very large lost dog. Will hosting a show about finding real love jeopardize her chances at doing just that? Let's ask Linda Holmes. Besides being a podcast producer and host yourself, why focus on the world of dating podcasts and, as your main character, Cecily, would moan, self-help specifically?
I think that I've just been interested in the this sort of industry and the world of influencers and self-help. Obviously, if you are on YouTube for any period of time, you will get a lot of people's advice recommended to you pretty regularly. So I thought it would just be interesting to think about what it is to immerse yourself in somebody's advice, particularly somebody who's not particularly trained at anything, which is what I find a lot of advice givers on the internet don't necessarily have training. They just have opinions.
Cecily is guided by Eliza, an online relationship guru, and I was wondering how far down the internet rabbit hole you did have to go to get the advice that she kind of gives to Cecily.
Oh, not very far. I mean, a lot of the advice that she gives to Cecily is pretty standard, what I find to be pretty standard dating advice, kind of doled out with a combination of genuine, well-meaning intent and sometimes just fairly casual yammering, you know?
That's a great word. I've definitely gotten a lot of these pieces of advices before, whether they're good or bad, or specific to me or not.
Yeah.
So early on, Cecily has a meet cute because of a giant dog. So tell us why he's a Great Dane with a great personality.
Oh, yeah. So Cecily is leaving her apartment one morning and she sees a gigantic dog run down the street in front of her place. And the dog is being pursued by a guy wearing a barbershop cape. And she eventually comes to figure out why exactly this is happening. But the dog is a Great Dane because my dog, Brian, who is not a Great Dane, he is a greyhound type, used to go to doggy daycare with a gigantic black and white Great Dane named Jude, who I loved, who was an incredibly lovely dog. I haven't seen him in a while, but lovely, lovely dog. And when I met Jude, I think I thought, I got to put this dog in a book, you know?
Yes. And I keep thinking, what is the funniest breed to see running down the street by itself?
Right.
And I think a Great Dane is perfect. I think you hit it.
Yeah, well, and there's something about a big Great Dane. You know, Jude used to have a bandana that said "not a horse," which I always thought was very funny, because they are big dogs.
They're big
dogs.
So for the podcast premise, Cecily has to go on a number of dates with different men who you describe very succinctly, but with all the important details. How much fun was it to pull those descriptions together?
A lot. That is a lot of fun. So it's really just a mix of, for each date, it's, you know, describe a person, describe a place that you would go on a date, mostly restaurants and things like that. Just describe the place you would go and describe why the date would not be a good date. Because these are not the dates that are going to necessarily be successful for her. So, you know, it is a combination. And I worked hard in those dates to try to make them work for the fact that it's set in DC.
Mm-hmm.
So I tried to make them kinds of jobs that people in DC might have. So yes, a lot of fun to write that section, a lot.
Did you get to exercise any demons by writing about people that you've met or that you've dated?
Possibly. Possibly, yes. Possibly, yes. There might be a guy in there who talks a little bit too much about his ex-wife. That might have happened to me.
I think I've met him as well.
Yeah, a little bit.
So I, as a radio person, I loved all of the excellent audio advice you give in the book. The rant, I think, in the first chapter about Mountain Dew is fantastic. So with all the excellent audio advice you give in the book, do you secretly hope that your readers will become more savvy quality podcast listeners?
Well, I'll tell you what I hope. What I hope is that they become more aware of how much work goes into podcasts, including podcasts that sound fairly casual, because that's something, the show that I'm on is very much a conversational show, and it can sound pretty spontaneously done, but that is because of the work of our producers and editors who are very skilled at taking something that was spontaneous and therefore pretty shaggy and transforming it into something that sounds much cleaner. And I think that with narrative podcasts, where there's a lot of reporting, the kinds of things that people think of that associate with stuff like This American Life and those kinds of things, it's even more true that there's just a tremendous amount of production work that goes into those shows. And it is my hope a little bit that people will appreciate that work a little bit more.
What I loved is that I've read a couple of books that are podcast, centric, like I Have Some Questions for You and Listen for the Lie. They focus on kind of the murder aspect of podcasts. What I liked about yours was it was all of the background that we have to do to make something sound good on the air. It isn't just the subject, but like you said, it's all of the extra work.
Yeah, listen, I am not a producer myself. I am more on the hosting side, and producers have an attention to detail that would be very, very difficult for me to maintain. And it's incredibly important. And without it, a job like my job would not exist.
Our producer, Luke, is smiling and laughing. And
good.
You get him as a human being.
Good.
Were there any details that you had to take out of the book for any reason, too long or extra, that you now wish that were included?
Oh, wow. What a great question. I'm thinking now, what did we cut out of the book? There was probably more audio stuff in a couple of places. I think there was more of a discussion of what kinds of microphones they were going to use in different settings. And I think I drew the line there in terms of maybe that was a little bit too much detail. I think there's kind of there's a little bit of conversation about that, but not very much. But a lot of it we did get to keep. And that's something that as I have continued to write books, there's been less sort of, cutting out vast swaths of things. In my first book, which was about a baseball player, there was a long history of the phenomenon in baseball of the yips when a baseball player loses the ability to throw. And my editor did have to come to me and sort of say, you can have this, but not all of this. And I think that kind of stuff happens less the more you write.
Yeah. That makes sense. I love that Will got the nickname Hot Waiter with all of the comments. It reminded me of Hot Priest during Fleabag. Was that kind of intentional?
I don't know if it was specifically a reference to Hot Priest, but it is certainly a reference to the way that the internet tends to assign monikers to people and then finds them very difficult to give up. And I think in his case, people hear him pop up in the podcast and they decide that his name should be Hot Waiter. And then he's Hot Waiter forever. And it's hard for him to break out of that. And he gets a certain level of kind of internet renown that he maybe never asked for, which I think a lot of people have experienced that. And it's most definitely a mixed bag, I think. Last question, is there a reason why this is set in the kind of commercial podcast space versus maybe the public radio podcast space? Well, yeah. I mean, I think some of the challenges that Cecily has are challenges that, although they would exist in a public media space, they would be really different. But it's mostly just because you don't want to be too much right in your own workplace in a book. It's not that fun and it makes you a little uncomfortable. And so I felt like it was close enough, but not too close.
Excellent. Well, Linda Holmes, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You can hear Linda Holmes on NPR's Pop Culture Happy Hour. Her third novel is Back After This. I'm Stephanie Weekman.
I'm Michelle Kinsey.
And I'm Carol DuQuette. Okay, we've done book writing. Now it's time to try songwriting. We're in the studio today with Sally and Lyn Fierce. Sally and Lynn, along with 5 other musicians, are the Fierce. They bring a groovy, folkternative vibe and unique sound. Welcome, and thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
I am curious to know how you two began writing music together. And can you start, Sally, and
Sure.
give us your perspective?
We both separately have written music our whole lives, but we met in a small area in Texas called Bandera, Texas, at a music festival. And that was almost 26 years ago. And we've been writing and performing together now for a little over 25 years. And we found a lot of satisfaction in being able to bring words to life and, put some groovy music behind it.
Yeah, we just love doing it.
Yeah. And so it's just kind of in our roots. It's what we do. And we spent a lot of years in Austin, Texas, and we played music down there, and they are just the mecca really for original music. And you can go anywhere, anytime, especially along 6th Street, and find any bar or any restaurant venue that's going to have somebody playing original music. And it's just become part of our heart and soul. And when we came back up to this area, we started looking for it. Where are the original musicians? And we kind of started bringing our own thing out, even though most places would be like, you mean you don't play a lot of covers? And we'd be like, no, but if you'll give us a chance, I think you'll kind of like what we do. And so that's what we did. And we, over the years, have formed the band that we now have, the Fierce. And we just love everybody that plays with us. And they love what we do. And Lynn and I have had this desire for a long time to bring that kind of a vibe, the Austin vibe, into Muncie. I'm originally from Muncie. And so it's been kind of like a long passion for me to just let that kind of music be expressed in this area. And we've run into a lot of really good songwriters, and there's just not that many outlets for it, for just having just original stuff. And so we're partnering with Cornerstone Center for the Arts, and we're going to be having a songwriter session every first Thursday in conjunction with First Thursday at the Cornerstone.
Excellent. Well, I want to ask you, Lynn, how did you all, what does it mean to you to write original songs? And then talk a little bit more to us about the event you're having at the Cornerstone, where others can do that.
Well, I think songwriting is just one singular part of music making. Some people are driven to play cover songs or, classical music or whatever. It really rolls your socks up and down. For us, it just happens organically in an afternoon. Something will come up, a phrase will come up, and songs will start blooming right there on the spot. Enough to where we can pull out the skeleton and put it in the practice room, and then it finishes developing.
Pull out the skeleton.
It's the skeleton of the song, the skeleton it's basically the foundation of how do we want this song to work? Is it verse, chorus? Do we want a bridge in there? Do we want an interlude? We pretty much have our hook, and that's what made it bloom in the first place,
That's beautiful. And that process has been so from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It definitely has, yeah.
Well, now, if you both can dive in a little more about the event, can we all be songwriters?
Absolutely. In fact, some of the tunes that we have most recently come up with ourselves have been tunes that our percussionists have brought just lyrics to us. He already had some lyrics, and we kind of diced and chopped them up to make them fit the right cadence for some music that came to light, and we put it together and made songs out of it. So, any poet, any lyricist can write something down, and in the right hands, it can be molded. So, anybody can do it. And the event's open to the public. It'll be on, like I said, the first Thursdays of every month at Cornerstone Center for the Arts. It'll be from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. So it'll be at the tail end of the regular First Thursday events so that people can still mill around and have fun and listen to the music. It'll be fun.
Nice. So what will the evening look like?
So it'll start out with one particular artist that we will choose. Each time we'll choose 2 different artists. The first artist will play and sing and tell stories about their songs and how they came to write them and their music writing process. And they'll do that for about 30 minutes. And then we'll break for just a short period while people can talk to them. And the next person will get up and get ready. And then they'll play for about 45 minutes to an hour. So we'll just spotlight and showcase some really good original talent in this area.
Now, will the Fierce be playing ever at this event?
Maybe sometime in the future, but the
Maybe
focus
later.
isn't really for us. What we're hoping to do is to build community. And we have found places in this area that were willing to take a chance on us. And we want to give other people that same kind of chance. Show what you've got. Show your talent. Show your lyric prowess and your musical prowess and share it with everybody. Because deep down, most songwriters, that's what they want to do. They want to show and share what they've done and hopefully make a difference. Sometimes there's that one person that will come up to you after you sing a song and go, that really touched me. And that's what it's all about. It's sharing in that kind of a capacity.
Oh, yeah. Connecting with people.
Absolutely.
So I'm trying to understand exactly like what I would do if I was going to do this. So I would come to the event ready with my original songs.
You can do that, but
This is on an application. So
Yeah.
you put in an application
Yeah,
first
absolutely.
and put some material together that we can review, and a little bio, kind of like what we do. It's really just to help these songwriters get to the next step of actually getting a paid show, getting enough material together, what it looks like, what it feels like to actually put yourself out there and not just sit in your living room and play,
So am I a songwriter and a singer and a musician if I'm participating?
Mostly, I mean, we will we'll have the ability to support up to like 3 people at once. So if you are a songwriter, but you say you're only the lyricist and you've got somebody that wrote the music with you, you both can come. And hopefully you've got somebody that wants to sing it.
Nice.
And so, yeah, we'll have the ability to support, multiple people so that any side of it can be represented. And yeah, so we have a web page on thefiercemusic.com for Songwriter Sessions. You can go and look it up there. And we also have a Facebook page for the Songwriter Sessions. And you'll be able to find a link to the application form where you can go fill out the form and upload a bio and links to your music. And that's not to say that already paid musicians aren't able to come. We've got, in fact, our first show on March the 6th is going to have a guy by the name of Cole Reuter, and he's going to start the show. And then Jerry Barker, who a lot of people in this area already are familiar with, will be playing, and he'll be performing for the second part of it. But like Lynn was saying, what our hope is that a lot of people who haven't had the ability to get out and do anything yet will come and be seen by other people, and somebody will say, oh, you really need to go over here, or you need to have this person come to your venue. And that's the hope, is that other people that do original music will start having the ability to get out there and perform it.
Well, this is really exciting, and I'm looking forward to checking it out.
Cool.
And that it's going to be a new fixture, a new element to our first Thursdays in Muncie.
It's going to be cool.
Is there anything else that you would like to tell us about the sessions, the songwriting sessions, or the Fierce, or music, life?
That's a big question.
That's loaded.
Or it could be little. I mean,
It's loaded. Well, yeah. So again, just the Fierce is a local band that mostly does original music. The few covers that we do, we have modified enough that we've done what we call fierceified the songs so that they don't sound exactly like the original. We like to put a spin on them. But yeah, we love to play and share, and just look for us online. We're also, like I said, we've got a website, thefiercemusic.com, and we're also on Facebook. You can find us at The Fierce, and we're on all the streaming services. So go look us up, give us a listen. You'll see what can develop out of years of working on songwriting.
Well, Sally and Lynn, thank you so much for being here and chatting with us today.
Thank you, Kara.
Thank you so much.
Sally and Lyn Fierce are founding members of the band The Fierce, of which, full disclosure, our co-host, Michelle Kinsey, is a member. The home stretch on this week's Pop of Culture.
That means it's time to ask another artist, what are you working on?
We're here today with Carol Burt. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Carol is a retired Muncie community school teacher. She also taught at Ball State University. She's a ceramicist and a mixed media artist, and she's an Indiana artisan living in Muncie, Indiana.
Yes.
I wanted to start out by saying a quote that I read that you made and going from there.
Okay.
I'm known more as a potter than a painter, but the success from my pottery comes from my training as a painter. Painting was my first love, and when I realized I could apply those skills to my thrown forms, I ended up with the best of both worlds. I love that, and I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how the realization came to merge those loves and how it's manifested in your work.
Well, it was kind of an accident that I came onto pottery. I had finished my master's degree and I was teaching, and I needed to update my teaching license. And I had taken so many watercolor courses that I needed something different, and I decided to take this 6-hour class that was a week at Ball State and a week at Dale Hollow. And once I started throwing, I never looked back. It was so much fun, and it wasn't really difficult for me. Then the challenge of trying to draw or paint on pottery that's where it merged, where I was able to use my painting skills and my drawing skills on my thrown forms.
So you said you studied at Ball State and Del Hollow?
That was a Ball State teacher. She was offering a special workshop. She had a 3-story log home at Dale Hollow. So we worked for a week here in the studio at Ball State, and then we went to Dale Hollow, and we water skied. We went on the pontoon at night. She had a hot tub. We worked all day, and then we played at night, and it was one of the best classes I ever took.
I feel like I can see what you just described in your work because there's so many fun animals. Well, you've brought some of your work in for us to look at today, and it's just amazing. We see some sculptures and some cups and other vessels. Also, you've brought some drawings and paintings. Can you talk a little bit about them? You have a very colorful palette.
Yes, I think a lot of that just comes from working with kids. I think that's my biggest inspiration. As an artist, you end up drawing and painting things you know about, and having worked with kids and trying to come up with things for them to do in class, they inspire me just as much as I inspired them, and they use a lot of color. I have a habit of drawing in the morning. When I was teaching, I would get up at 4:30, and I would draw for an hour and a half before I got ready for school. And so I have stacks of sketchbooks at home, and I still use them. Like I have one in my car that I was using this morning from 2014. But I would just get up in the morning and doodle. Or I would think of things that maybe my students could do. I guess I was trying to keep ideas fresh for them. So I'm not a person who sits down and sketches what I see. I just sketch from my imagination. And then it ends up turning into something. And I might come back to it 10 years later. I did a painting the other day that came from a really old sketch.
Oh, I love that. Carol brought in a sketchbook with her today, and it is just filled with fun images. And it's fun to look at what you were doing at some point in the past and see if it's something that strikes your fancy currently.
Yeah, that's true. I did a painting the other day based on an old sketch that I hadn't looked at for years. And when I looked at it again, it was like it was all new to me, and I thought it had possibility.
I want to know, now you say do you still sketch every morning?
Well, now that I'm retired, you'd think I'd sketch more often, but I don't get up at 4:30, and that was reserved time for sketching. So I think I make art every day.
Nice.
I have a studio in my on the second floor of my house for painting, and then I have a studio in the backyard for pottery.
Okay. So is your studio outside?
Yes.
Okay.
My husband and my son built the studio. I have an amazing view to the west, and there's no houses. So for at least a mile, so I get to see the sun set at night. And it's kind of interesting too, because now that I've been retired, things you didn't notice, you notice a lot more in nature. So the sun sets behind one woods in the summer solstice, and then in the winter solstice. No, wait a minute. Solstice or equinox? Where am I at there? Equinox. Yeah. It sets behind a different woods, and I can watch it set all along that line.
Wow. Do you feel like your different pace has had an effect on your artwork?
Definitely. Yeah, I have more time to think things through. Yeah, I spend a lot of time looking at things where before I was in too much of a hurry.
How is that shown up, like in your work?
Well, I think it's shown up in the amount that I'm producing. I have probably hundreds of paintings upstairs that are just in stacks. And I've gone back and finished things. I've had things sitting in a drawer for a couple of years, and I keep having conversations with them. I'll set them out so that when I walk into the family room in the morning, I see them. It's like I'm seeing them for the first time. And those conversations help me to finish them up.
I love that. I really do. Because sometimes you make something and it's been long ago. And you're like, did I make that?
Yeah.
And you kind of have to get to know it again and remember.
Yeah. And sometimes you're surprised. It's good. Did I actually do that?
Yes. Well, I was also wondering, are you showing your work anywhere around town?
Yes, I have work at Gordy's. I've been with them for, probably close to 20 years. And Jenny Gordy encouraged me to apply for Indiana Artisan. And I've been with that organization since 2008. So I do have a show coming up in March at the State Fairgrounds in Indianapolis, an Indiana Artisan show.
Excellent. So we could find you there.
Yes.
I have to say, since you mentioned Jenny Gordy, she was my art teacher.
Oh, you're so lucky.
I'm very lucky. And it was very encouraging.
Yes.
Always. Well, I really appreciate you being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
It's time for the arts calendar. Kara, why don't you kick us off?
Sure will. Art Rise in Muncie will have its first jazz night Friday, February 28th at the new Community Center. It's located at 1600 North Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. The jazz begins at 8 p.m.
The 52nd Larry McWilliams Dimensions in Jazz Festival is Saturday, March 1st at Ball State University. The event attracts more than 35 high school jazz bands each year. The bands participate in jazz band and combo competitions as well as clinics. The day ends with an evening concert featuring the two winning bands from the day's competition and the Ball State Jazz Lab Ensemble with a special guest artist. This year's artist is Alexis Cole. The concert will begin at 7:30 p.m. in Sursa Performance Hall.
Fame Junior will be presented by Muncie Civic Theater's Youth Education Encore program, Friday through Sunday, February 28th through March 2nd.
This weekend is your last chance to catch POTUS at Ball State's Struther Theater, directed by our own co-host, Jen Blackmer. Shows continue through Saturday.
The 35th Annual Juried Art Show opens Saturday, March 1st at Minnetrista Museum and Gardens. This exhibit runs through May 4th. Celebrating creativity across the Hoosier State, this exhibition showcases a diverse array of artistic expressions juried by metal artist Patricia Nelson, Professor Emerita at Ball State University's School of Art.
Looking for some laughs? Comedian Joe Coy will be at Clues Memorial Hall Friday, February 28th. Down the street, comedian Tom Segura will be at the Fishers Event Center on the same night, February 28th. Decisions.
The 26th Annual Student Exhibition opens at the Anderson Museum of Art on Sunday, March 2nd. The exhibit featuring the work of high school students in Madison County will be on display through March 16th.
Speaking of students, Ball State art students are showing off their work at the 90th Annual Student Art Show through March 15th at the Ned and Gloria Greiner Art Gallery.
The Anderson Young Ballet Theater will present Alice in Wonderland Saturday and Sunday, March 1st and 2nd in the Paramount Theater. Your journey down the rabbit hole begins at 7:30 p.m.
And a reminder that next Thursday is First Thursday in downtown Muncie. The event includes gallery walks, a maker's market, live music, and much more. The fun begins at 5 p.m. If you have a fun event Pop of Culture listeners need to know about, tell us at indianapublicradio.org/contact, then click Pop of Culture.
Pop of Culture on IPR is made possible in part by Psi Iota Xi. Additional support comes from the Indiana Arts Commission, the Community Foundation of Randolph County, the National Endowment for the Arts, and sustaining members of IPR. You can support local programming today at indianapublicradio.org.
And that's our show. This episode was produced by Luke Jones, whose semi-autobiographical novel about finding love in the podcast world is titled Pop of Culture and Parmigiano and is out in 2065. Our show was hosted by me, Michelle Kinsey.
And me, Kara DuQuette. Our co-host Jen Blackmer returns next week to Pop of Culture, which is a production of IPR on the campus of Ball State University.